Hello, church, and welcome to this Sunday morning, October 11th, 2020. I'm Pastor Mary Beth of the Trempealeau United Methodist Church, and I'm glad you're here. I'd like to start this morning with our gospel reading, and we find this in the Gospel of Matthew in the 15th chapter, and I think you'll recognize this. This is a story about Jesus feeding the masses. So hear these words from the Gospel of Matthew. Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for the crowd because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry, for they might faint on the way. The disciples said to him, Where are we to get enough bread in the desert to feed so great a crowd? Jesus asked them, How many loaves have you? They said 7, and a few small fish. Then, ordering the crowd to sit down on the ground, he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and after giving thanks, he broke them and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all of them ate and were filled, and they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. Those who had eaten were 4,000 men, besides women and children. May these words bless you today and in the coming week. Last week, Barb Serta Warner of the Northwest District of the Wisconsin United Methodist Church offered a devotion, and that is what I'm using as my inspiration for my sermon today. There's a video on Google or on YouTube right now that shows a zookeeper and some panda bears, and the zookeeper is trying to rake up leaves. And she just can't get anywhere because these pandas keep yanking on the rake, and they dump the basket of leaves out, and they tumble over each other, and they hang on her legs. And she's, all the while, she's trying to rake these leaves, squealing in frustration because she's just getting nowhere. Well, since mid-March, there have been many days that I feel like a zookeeper and the world is a whole bunch of pandas. I had so many things on my to-do list. I was so excited about a sermon series that I was going to start in May and I was going to complete in September. I even had all the props finished so that it would be more meaningful for all of you. I was maybe going to go on a local yoga retreat, and I was going to spend time seeing my sisters. I had a couple of Bible studies planned and some interactive workshops that we were going to do here at church. Annual conference in Green Bay. Oh, I don't know. Maybe church indoors? Poof, it all went away. And it seems almost like sometimes the pandas have won. And I'm not alone. Every one of us has had the 2020 pandas yank the rake out of our hands. What is a zookeeper to do? One of the most popular shows on TV right now is a reality show called Hoarders. It's a series where, and maybe you've seen it, for one reason or another, usually for a lot of reasons, someone has just acquired so much stuff that they can't let go of. Pretty soon their house and their yard and their garage and their basement and their attic is so full that there's really not even room for them. Very often their families pull away, they lose their friends, and sometimes they even lose their health because of the mold and everything growing underneath all of this debris. And I asked a friend of mine why she liked this program Hoarders so much, and she said, I think it's because, in the end, they always create order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. In our gospel reading today, Jesus is in the middle of a very chaotic situation. Imagine if 20 people that were extra people showed up at your house on Thanksgiving. Well, this is that times like 1,000 or 2,000. Jesus has just spent the day healing people of everything from injuries to blindness to deafness to who knows what. He's pooped, and yet still these people don't go home. And he says, well, now they're hungry. And the disciples say, yes, Jesus, they are hungry. And what are we going to feed them here in the middle of this desert? And Jesus says, or asks, well, what do you have? In the very heart of all that they did not have, Jesus asked, what do we have? So I would like us to play a little game. I would like you to put the emphasis on the first word, the emphasis on the sentence, the first word, what do you have? What do I have? Try it. What do I have? Saying it this way seems to be the exasperated version. What do I have? Not what I want. Okay, so now let's try it a new way. Put the emphasis on the second word. What do I have? Try it. What do I have? Saying it this way emphasizes the fact that you must have something. Now the third word. What do I have? Try it. What do I have? As opposed to naming all that I don't have, or what might I have that someone else doesn't have? What talent or resource do I have that someone else doesn't have? And finally, the emphasis on the last word. What do I have? Try it. What do I have? Setting aside all that I may not have, what do I have? When Jesus looks out over all of those hungry people and into the desperate eyes of the disciples, there are a lot of questions he could have asked. The pandas had taken over. Leave it to Jesus to make order out of chaos. Well, what do we have? Remember in the book of Genesis, our first book of the Bible, when God creates the universe, and this is what it says in that first couple of verses of our Bible. It says the earth was chaos and waste. Some versions say that it was a formless void and darkness. And what did God do? God swept a wind over the face of the waters, and God asked, well, what do I have? And created order out of chaos because God has had the breath of creation within. We are created in that image. We have the breath of creation within us too. Creating order, creating new ways of doing things, creating new ways to have fun that don't involve shopping or going to restaurants or rushing off to yet another school function. Creating times of family games or Zooming with friends or rediscovering how good it feels to be outside, like today. What do we have? Well, folks, we have a new reality. And while the pandas are still in the yard, we will still get the leaves into that basket. It's just going to take some creative thinking. Now, there's been lots of pictures lately on Facebook of people putting together jigsaw puzzles. And if you like putting those together, you know that when you dump all those pieces out on the table, there's something exciting about that chaos. And then maybe you turn them all over one at a time and you lay them out so that they're in a single layer. And then maybe you group them all by color. And then perhaps you put together the pieces just of the outline before you start really trying to put all the pieces together. A box of chaos becomes a thing of beauty. You have a plan. Living through 2020 has been almost like trying to chase too many bouncing balls. It can be frustrating. Well, it is frustrating. It can be exhausting and tiring. It isn't what we expected, and it sure isn't what we want. But we can't go backwards. We cannot keep the pandas out of the yard. And we don't get the luxury of just backing out of COVID until it's gone, or until the election is over, until the fires are all out, or until the job is back to normal. So what do we have? We have a God who started the world creating order and has not missed a day since. God is still creating order. He's working on it. And let's not forget, we are the pandas in God's yard. So maybe creating order out of chaos isn't so much about outsmarting the pandas, but rather working around them and working with them, maybe even. That's what Jesus did that day. That's what God does every day. So this week, may we notice more of what we have than what we don't, because God is working to make it something delicious.